No guest today. Today, we're actually just recapping the incredible webinar series that you curated the other week, Creativity Week 2026. And we had three pretty impressive sessions from Stef Hamerlinck from, I
Stef,
think he's from Belgium.
Yeah.
And then the other folks were from Calgary. So it was a really nice mix of people with great expertise here. So I thought we would, in this podcast, kind of recap or maybe just talk about, some of our highlights.
Each that sounds great.
Webinars. Yeah. So
I love it.
Yeah.
How about I start with you, Derek?
Oh, sure.
Flip it on. What was something that really stuck out for you during Creativity Week?
Yeah, I think, in general, there's and I did take notes here, but in general, there were a lot of quotable lines each episode, right? Like, from the Stef one, he talked about being unmistakably you, which is kind of funny because we're talking about AI characters and stuff like that, but there's still some authenticity through those AI characters. And I think you and I have talked about this before. I'm so against the AI creative or AI video production and all that stuff, which, I mean, fair enough. But I think,
I want to dig into that later, but keep going.
Yeah. But yeah, I think he made some really good points about that authenticity component to it. I guess the other one, Jody from Blackline, she said something about someone else will know. And I think that's a really funny quote because we were talking about competitors. It's like, we're not necessarily, looking to our competitors to make marketing decisions. We're actually looking at our customers. Like what are our customers' needs? What are their pain points? In terms of coming up with a creative component or a creative, a memorable marketing moment for their audiences and so on and so forth. And on that same one too, and I'm talking about the B2B, why don't we just get into that one? The B2B, why B2B is never just business, and it's mostly around making good creative for B2B companies. And, I think you and I both know it can be hard to be creative with B2B companies. And I think one really good point of that was all of them. Alex, who is from Precision Drilling, she moderated the discussion. We had Suzanne, who is the founder of Relish Ideas, Christina, who's the brand and design strategist of WCD, Rhonda, who's the head of marketing for Rosen Canada, and Jody over at Blackline Safety. I think they all made this point about B2B buyers. Well, they don't leave their humanity at the door, right? And a lot of the time, these companies are worried about looking bad in terms of, sorry, let me turn off my Microsoft Teams here. I got a million chats open up. I think a lot of companies, they talk about how it can actually cost somebody their job if creative might be too risky or whatever. So it always falls back on talking specs and return on investment. But the truth is people have their own emotional decisions that they make, right? There's, I think Rhonda actually, I wrote a note here, had this great line about building a clear defensible decision path so the buyers can walk into their boss's office and basically win the discussion around creative. I think it was funny how they talked about how really the job as a marketer, one is not just to, market or sell your product, but it's also to sell a creative idea so that the company can differentiate themselves a little bit, but also hit on those emotional values. So, I guess I would love to hear kind of your perspective on that talk in regards to, not leaving humanity at the door and, not just driving purchasing decisions based on like a spec sheet for the most part.
Yeah. There's a couple things. I unfortunately couldn't stick around for the whole session that time on the B2B one, but in the prep call, we had some great, and a couple of prep calls. We had great conversations, and knowing a little bit about what other people told me about, and how great it was, and how interesting the conversation was. I think there's so much about B2B that, in a lot of ways, I feel like it's playing catch up.
Yeah.
In the sense that the mature advertising market and most of the like work and research and or the hype has been around B2C.
Yeah.
And that B2B is becoming more and more, I would say mature in this sense, but it like there's an awareness and almost like a renaissance in B2B, and B2B is giant. It's like, I think half of all like like it's almost as big or maybe bigger than B2C as a category. But it's also a little bit different. And because of B2B buying committees, there's so much more complexity in the buying decision. It's not just about, Derek, I need to reach you so that I can influence you to buy these pair of shoes or the guitar that you're missing on the back, like another new guitar for your wall there. Yeah. It's like, I need to reach you plus the other people that are, maybe there's 6 to 15 different people on the buying committee so that they get agreement. And they're all coming in and out of the buying decision at various different times. And their influence is equal probably in a lot of cases to the actual economic buyer, the person who signs off. And the big fear on the economic buyer is that they don't want to get fired for making the wrong choice. So then you end up in this position where it's really interesting. It's a much more complex conversation and sale process. But really, from a marketing perspective, so interesting and rewarding, I think, to get it right.
Yeah, totally. And I think, that's the funny part is, there's, I know you don't really like the term funnel, but there is the top of the funnel, quote unquote, where, you need to attract a certain buyer from the start, and hopefully they'll champion your brand moving down the line in terms of down the procurement line in terms of who's actually going to clear this, this purchasing decision, right? So.
I'm looking at the humanity part too. I think is really interesting. There's this screenshot I took. There's a guy named Martin Klepek. I don't know him. But he was looking at, there's this thing called double jeopardy, and there's a whole bunch of like scientific laws that I think are really interesting. And when we talk about humanity, we often think about, well, a B2B buyer is on LinkedIn, so we have to be on LinkedIn. Right. And then I've been in this situation before. I'm like, well, maybe we should use like Facebook, or maybe we should use TV. And they're like, our buyers aren't there. Yeah. Because it's a B2B scenario, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then so he had done this report looking at the usage, and there's this regular pattern. So he's looking to see if the pattern holds. But the number of users that are on one channel and how many of those same people are on all these other channels. So the number of people who are on LinkedIn, there's 98% of those people who are on WhatsApp, and 93% of the people on LinkedIn are also on YouTube. And then 85% of the people who are on LinkedIn are also on Messenger, and 87% of the people who are on LinkedIn are also on Facebook, and 84% of the people who are on LinkedIn are also on Instagram. And so it goes down based on the market share of each of these channels. And so it's interesting when we I think about how do we reach people? We often like overcomplicate, I think, in some ways, how we can reach them because of the niche targeting stuff and the capabilities that we have. But ultimately, especially if it's not just a single person that you actually have to influence, but it's a whole group of people.
Yeah.
You might not have any idea who the group of people are. And so then you're like targeting everyone in the company, all the executives, let's say. So there's lots of reasons that you could just reach them on, say, YouTube. Like, and so there's a humanity because they're also there too, and they're also on Facebook, and they are also just seeing that person through the lens of the B2B buying hat that they're wearing
Mhm.
sometimes as a for 8 hours a day isn't actually like a complete view of that person either.
Yeah, that's so true. My Teams was going off earlier. Like a lot of, let's say, the initial person that you're attracting or you're trying to attract, they're often going to send that ad or that piece of content or white paper, whatever, what have you, that might be telling this B2B business's story or I don't know, listing off their spec sheet to their higher ups or to their procurement teams through like a Slack or a Microsoft Teams and stuff, right? So yeah, it's interesting. Targeting is a funny thing when it comes to B2B for sure, because it's almost like you just don't know unless you actually talk to a bunch of people ahead of
Well,
time.
and yeah, there's also like a whole bunch of stuff now around like how we think we're targeting
Yeah.
isn't because the channels let us doesn't mean that's actually how we're targeting, like who's reaching, who
Yeah.
we're reaching. Um, and so I think that's a big part of what, like, why I get so excited about creative, because the creative can actually be one of the best targeting tools.
That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. And I think like, yeah, there's, I remember Rhonda was talking about how she's fighting for like 2 years to get this adventurous campaign approved, right? She built like
Hmm.
this coalition of people. She reframed it from, hey, this is risky to, hey, this actually just feels a little bit different than what we usually do. And
Hmm.
then she actually had to like roll it out into phases with like like just to pitch the project to
Yeah.
her executive teams. And I think that's a pretty cool. I'd love to understand a bit more what that playbook looks like. Who might be stuck in let's say a risk averse organization, I
Totally.
guess. So yeah, I would love to see that. And if anybody listening to this podcast, I'd love to hear. And they
Well,
deal with the same thing. I'd love to hear what they go through.
and one of the things we talked about with Dan and Ed on
Yeah.
the Thursday session was kind of that process is like is how do you get buy-in for an idea? And so it might be part of the answer to what Ron, and maybe part of the process that Rhonda had adopted as well. But the one thing they were talking about was around the brief. And so the
Yeah.
brief is a really, really important document. And if you just go to people and say, okay, well, here's the brief, great. Go ahead and make the concept. And then they come back with nothing, not nothing. If they come back to pitch you the concept, but you don't have a framework or a model or some way to evaluate it, you end up, and that was the topic of the conversation really, was just you get this kind of ambiguous feedback that I don't know, it looks weird. I don't
Yeah.
like it because they're so used to seeing something that is more normal to that industry. Competitor X, Y, or Z isn't doing that. Why would we do that? Make something that looks something more like that, but just, with our logo on it. If it's
Yeah.
an ERP, put it at a warehouse in the background, or show somebody looking at their financial books. You know what I mean? Then,
Yeah.
and so there's all this kind of stuff that you get, and like ultimately you get to a point where the feedback is almost useless and actually really costly, because then you go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you would get an idea that was maybe slightly resembles the original one, but is so rounded at the edges that there's no real substance to it. And sometimes that's good because you've intended it to be that way and there was some really wrong things, but a lot of times it's because there's not a framework in place to be able to provide valuable feedback.
Mm.
So that was their point, was to say, like, if you provide a structure of saying before you get to the pitch part and saying, here's how we're going to evaluate creative. Like, we have like all these measurements on digital media, but when we're talking about evaluating a good idea for creative or any idea for creative,
Yeah.
here's the kinds of feedback that here's the way to structure feedback to make it productive for us.
Yeah, I like that. I remember they were talking about, I think it was like the head, heart, and stomach
Yeah.
framework or whatever the acronym
Yeah,
was.
there's a bunch of them, but yeah, that was the
Yeah.
one that Ed brought up, which was great.
Yeah, and really it's like, okay, first you got to agree on that evaluation criteria before the work even gets made. And I think what I like about that framework is that it turns from it turns from feedback. Let's say you showed a creative, it turns feedback from, hey, I just don't like the creative,
Mm-hmm.
to, hey, does this actually hit with what we agreed the brief needed to do?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I remember, Dan from ZGM, who's on that webinar.
Mm-hmm.
He talked about the Alberta Health Services COVID campaign.
Yeah.
If you remember it, the weird
Yeah.
COVID head,
Yeah.
where basically the framework was locked in with the client ahead of time. And
Mm-hmm.
that framework really like acted as a shield, right? Is like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're going to do something like super unconventional, pretty
Mm-hmm.
humorous. It's going to fall in line with our audience, who were, I think it was like a Gen Z audience,
Mm-hmm.
around being the social distancing and stuff like that. Something that they haven't heard in the last 3 years that was happening during the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic. Um, and I think that process actually helped them survive that creative, because the team could just point back to why it solved the problem to begin with, instead of just
Totally.
defending subjectivity or their taste in creative for the most part. So
Totally. Yeah. And there's the head heart stomach they were talking about for, I think it was Ed brought that up, but I think it was for McDonald's, maybe. I can't
okay.
remember exactly, but it was something like that, which makes sense for them. And then ZGM had theirs, and I know there's Rethink has um, crafts,
Hmm.
which is a specific acronym for like all the things that they look for. The T I remember being truth. Like,
Hmm.
is there truth in it, and insight in it that's really relevant? There's Molson has their own, which is muscle, another one.
Right.
But
Also, yeah.
like, I think the idea there for all of them is just to have something that is agreed to in advance. So, and an explanation as to why you have this thing, because it will help you get to the end point quicker, better, faster, stronger, all those kinds of things. On the flip side, a long time ago, I interviewed these guys from the Better Briefs Project.
Hmm.
And I always think about this line. One guy was like, it's kind of the equivalent of going to the hairdresser and then just saying, okay, start cutting. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I'll know it when I see it.
Yeah.
Just keep
Totally.
going until I tell you stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's that like we're trying to avoid. You can imagine that would be a disaster for most
Yeah, yeah.
people.
No, I totally, I totally get that. That's funny, actually. There's also like the Subway reference where it's just like, just make me a sandwich, and if I like it, I'll pay for it, and if I don't like it, I'm not going to pay for it.
Right.
That
Yeah.
type of thing, right? And like
Yeah.
a Better Briefs Project reference, I think you're talking about. Is there like a stat like 80% of people who write briefs think their briefs are good, but only about 10% of the people
Mm-hmm.
receiving them on the agency side actually agree that the brief is good.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, writing a brief, and I think Ed might have mentioned this too, is that it's kind of the end of a long strategic journey. We
Mm-hmm.
had Pedro on the podcast too, who talked about this, and this was like a few episodes ago. I couldn't even tell you the number. I think we're at like 29 now. But basically, all you get is what made it onto the brief, basically. So
Mm-hmm.
really, it's not necessarily like a creativity thing. It's more of like I guess, a communication problem that
Mm-hmm.
you have when the brief's not good, right? So, and when the
Mm-hmm.
brief's not good, well, the creative's not going to be good. So, yeah, that was an interesting conversation, actually. Do you have any other takeaways from that? I think you had lots of questions during that entire presentation. You were basically moderating that discussion. So, I'd love to hear more about your takeaways.
Yeah, really. I mean, for me, that was really the big one. In terms of, if you think about the levers that we have to pull on the marketing side, and when I say marketing, I mean like most marketing. When we say marketing, it's not across the four P's
Yeah.
for a lot of companies. Um, we're not always involved in product. We're not always involved in pricing. We're not always involved in the place and the distribution, other than maybe e-com.
Hmm.
So we're kind of often relegated. I'm just thinking about some of the job titles like digital marketing, creative designer,
Right.
um, comms. Um, there's not that many people that are in like other categories that would still be considered marketing. So marketing is kind of advertising, is what I mean when I'm saying
Yeah.
this. But we have a couple levers. One is the budget, and that's not always under our control.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one would be the media choices that we have. Like, do I do TV? Do I do radio? Like the media mix.
Yeah.
And then another one is the creative. And so, those are big swath buckets, obviously, but those are kind of the three big levers. So there's so much that we focus on, I think, in general with the channels. And then the channels often kind of are the tail that's wagging the dog in the sense that they need so much attention because there's so many variants of an ad. And so you're busy all the time because you need 800 different versions of the same ad for Facebook, and then 800 different ones for YouTube and, whatever, Google, PMax, and all those kinds of things. And you get really busy and fixated on that without often really thinking about the creative as much as the media. And I think that's kind of the aha for me, was the unlock to go, okay, well, we don't always control the budget, but we can do more and probably think harder about and if we weren't so busy on just like feeding these digital channels with all this stuff to be busy that they're asking us for, and then having them tell us how much money we could be spending how much more we could be spending with them, we might actually have more time and thinking around the quality of the creative that we're putting into those channels. And so that was kind of a big aha for me.
Yeah, it's true. Something else that I remember, you pushed Dan and Ed pretty hard on, differentiation versus distinctiveness. And I think, because I think for you it was really about true differentiation, right? That's
Yeah. I mean, if you think about like the classic is Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Tesla comes out, launches, and they're differentiated because at the time when they first launched, if not the only, maybe there's the Toyota Purus that was out at that point, but really the only EV in North America.
Yeah.
And so they're differentiated. But as in every market, if something's successful, people copy it. And so then you have all these copycats that start popping up, including the major big players like, Ford's got an EV truck and they call it Lightning, right?
Yeah.
Which seems like why not? Of course. But it seems counterintuitive to what probably most truck owners thought they would be getting 15 years ago. And so if something's successful, it'll get copied and then replicated. And now there's BYD that's like a giant player in the whole global market of EVs. And so Tesla is not that unique anymore. Mm-hmm. And for a long time, they could say, well, we don't advertise, except they kind of did because Elon bought Twitter, and then he nobody else could afford to put a car into a spaceship and launch it in the atmosphere.
Totally. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, it's not that he didn't have marketing budget. He definitely did. He spent $55 billion on Twitter or whatever it was. So there's like some things like that where you go, okay, well, it's differentiated and we don't need to advertise, and advertising is the penalty to pay for not being differentiated. But really, differentiation is hard to sustain. It's really hard to hold on to.
Yeah.
And so what is really possible is to become distinctive. And I thought that was a really interesting comment that they were talking about in that session, because distinctiveness, like your brand, your logo, your jingle, your tagline, your colors, and all the combination of all those things is something you can own and something that you can invest in and something that compounds over time, that people don't copy because they don't want to look like you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Similar to like the Nike swoosh, right? It's just a check mark. But it's distinctively Nike, and nobody's copying that.
Yeah, like the Geico Gecko is an example, the Michelin Man. There's all these things. The Geico Gecko has been around since 1999, 2000.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. Well, why don't we segue over to the mascot talk
Yeah.
from there. Wow, it's like I planned that, but I didn't, or we planned that, but I didn't. Um, Stef Hamerlinck from Belgium. What's up? Sorry, what's this company called again? I completely forgot.
Uh, yeah.
I'll
Good
look it
question.
up.
I keep thinking of Marcel, which is his mascot.
Yeah.
I think it's stefhammerlink.com is how I got there originally.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. For some reason, I
Um,
thought it's
yeah,
just
Steph
Stef
Hammerlink
Hamerlinck
Studio.
Studio. Yeah. Okay. For
Yeah.
some reason, I thought he had a company name, but my bad, Steph.
He does have another website that you get to from stefhammerlink.com, which is Marcel's mascot.
Right.
And it's a thing you can
Yeah.
play
Okay.
around with to
Marcel.
see how he's built it and created it and all that kind of
So
stuff. But
cool. That's so cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
I knew a little bit about him beforehand. Well, I kind of know him from before, but I think that's probably your first time seeing him
Yeah.
and the
And it
things
was
he's talking
cool.
about.
Yeah. He's certainly like I talked earlier about, I'm so against, the AI creativity, but I loved his focus on, you know, what his definition was of the real definition of, I
Hmm.
guess, slop. And it's not necessarily about, you know, it's not like when it comes to like AI content you don't like, it's basically broken down into three things. Is it just pure clickbait? Is there basically no human craft in it at all?
Hmm.
Or is it just a remix of stuff that already exists? And that's kind of the shit that I see all the time.
Totally.
So I think, and what's crazy, I think what upsets me too, maybe, I don't know, maybe because I'm a millennial who hangs out with a lot of Gen Z people or something. But the wild part is just people love, just eat it up, and it just, really gets to me. But he brought up the fact that, it's actually, like, it's not that nobody's watching slot, because they are. But the question I wanted to ask you is, what's the actual line between using AI efficiently and just making that slop, right? Because, you know, AI these days, it's not just like a tool. There's actually like a craft and like
Hmm.
an intent to
Hmm.
use it. Well, hopefully, an intent to use AI, right? So I'm
Hmm.
curious, what are your thoughts around, the definition of slop and so on?
Yeah, it it's hard to say because I've just, in all transparency, I've just started experimenting with
Mm.
AI myself from a perspective of creative. I've been using it every day for more like thinking and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff for I don't know, probably the last year, but really like intensely for I don't know, 6 months, let's say. And so it's really interesting because for me, like as an example, we were in a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about something for the Calgary Marketing Association. Um, Specifically, we were looking at the lean startup model, and I found a picture of the lean startup process, the build, measure, learn loop,
Yep.
and then I copied a picture and put it into Gemini and asked it to animate it, and it was amazing, and like what it did in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's an interesting application for creative that I don't think is slop. How I use it, I'm not like I don't have high aspirations that it's going to be like an amazing thing. But if it's a piece of creative that I could never have done before on my own,
Yeah.
and it's on a blog post, let's say, to help like as a mini explainer as to like
Yeah. Yeah.
how it's a bite-sized 10-second snippet of how what does it mean to build something, what does it mean to measure something, what does it mean to learn, and how do you iterate, and why is product market fit important,
Yeah.
like I think that's helpful. So and that's a really simple example. But I think you've got on the other end of the spectrum is a company like Coca-Cola that built their Christmas ad out of AI, and that went with a giant media budget all around the world.
Hmm.
And it scored really well on testing for System One, and
Yeah.
they're curious about like how good is AI. So it's a really interesting thing. I think what he's doing is fascinating because it's a very specific niche that a lot of people have. We were talking about characters, like the Geico Gecko is an AI generated character. I'm pretty sure. Like I don't know that for sure, but I think it is. It's a real person's
It might be
voice.
now. It might have started off as human
Yeah.
craft, and then
Yeah. And that's what he's building is characters like that. And so from a brand perspective, that's a huge component of distinctiveness and how you get recognized and how you stand out from a crowd. And so what makes it really interesting and appealing for me is that not that you create an entire commercial necessarily out of like this animated world, but that you have something like this character that could become part of your brand ecosystem. That the voice can carry on a radio and or on video, but so can the character. And so in some ways it, and the logo doesn't always do that because it doesn't always have a voice. And so you can't show a logo on a radio ad.
true.
And so there's a necessity to have different tools that are part of your brand kit. And I think it doesn't have to be all AI in order for it to be, create like a creative AI execution. It could be elements of AI that are supporting your creative execution. I don't know if that answers the question, but
No, yeah, it does, and I think you went above and beyond with that answer too. But yeah, I think even Steph made this point about there's a line about the real risk is in AI replacing creatives. I think it's more about non-creative people who don't have creative taste, thinking they don't actually need creatives anymore because they can just use AI to do everything, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like if you think about technology in general, like did a digital camera get rid of photographers? No. Did a fax machine get rid of like mail? No, although mail's having its own challenge. But all these channels, it's never really the death of. It's usually some metamorphosis into the new thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just it's another tool. It's a really cool tool, a really powerful tool, but it's less about. I always think about this song. I always think about the Bananarama. It's a Fun Boy 3 version. So it ain't what you do, it's the way you do it. I think it's an Ella Fitzgerald song originally.
I couldn't tell you. Sorry.
It's great. Listen to the Bananarama one later. It's a really catchy tune. But the idea of it is like, it's mostly just the title that I keep thinking about. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. It ain't what you do, it's the way you do it. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. And that's what counts. That's how the song goes. But it's not so much about that you're using AI. It's like how you use AI.
Yeah.
Same thing with digital cameras, same thing with fax machines, same thing with computers, same thing. And like, we almost don't, I worked originally at a point in time when there wasn't a laptop, when there wasn't a cell phone. I remember there being like there was other apps, other ways to text people other than through just text. And I was like, why do I need these 6 different ways to so now there's like 800 different ways to text and communicate people.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's I totally agree. There's, it's a tool for us to use at this point, and I think, as long as you use it in an intentional way, and you're, as long as if you're using AI, as long as the brief is met, I think we're okay for the most
part. Even on the AI side, I gotta imagine there's a bunch of Marvel movies that are made with AI,
totally.
A bunch of movies like Avatar has got to have AI.
Yeah,
but we don't critique that.
I know,
as much as we do the creative that run in ads. So like, why is that?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe because they're trying to sell you something in an ad.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. As I remember what was the second Matrix called? Matrix Reloaded, I think.
Oh yeah.
They used so much CGI in that, and you just knew. I was like, you've ruined the original version of the Matrix now, by releasing a second one that is almost completely done in CGI.
But then if you get to that point where like it is becoming so commonplace, so many things have it, and like I know that there's not really a green Incredible Hulk scaling a building in New York City in real life, but it's the story behind it that is more captivating than anything. So does it matter that it's AI? I don't know. I struggle with the word authenticity because I
I know.
don't
I
really
guess,
know
you
what it
know,
means.
maybe it doesn't matter to, your consumer.
Yeah.
But maybe it does for people like us. Like I worked in, film and television for a long time. So I think about the visual effects people, and I'm like, hey, did you do this or did somebody else do this? Right?
Hmm.
It's like, oh no, they got us on visual effects in terms of I made this mask or the
Mm.
COVID head for somebody, right? So I guess there's that as well. That,
Hmm.
but yeah, and I guess like you know, Steph was talking about how a lot of social media, the content that you consume on social media is AI. There are
Yeah.
some things, there's like, I don't mean to bring up Charlie Kirk here, but I'm going to because I talked about this recently with somebody. When that video came out where he got assassinated, I thought it was AI. I didn't realize it was real. I was like, oh, geez,
Oh,
why would they do that to him? That's brutal. And I'm like, wait a second, that is real. Like
yeah.
it's hard to tell anymore. I can't tell what's real and what's not anymore sometimes. But I guess that might be a conversation offline.
Yeah.
But
I took a left turn,
yeah,
but
but it's
but
true. Like I
I
don't.
know
It's hard to tell these days. Like
it
what's
totally.
real and
And
what's
Steph
not.
had like a bunch of those left and right kind of images. Like,
Yeah.
is this which
Oh
one of
yeah.
these is AI? And I'm like,
Yeah. It took me
I
a
mean,
bit.
there's one or two of them that I'm like, yeah, that's obviously the AI one. But there's three or four of them. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
I coin flip. I don't
I
really
know.
know.
I know. It's crazy,
I
and
just
our
for
audience too. They
Yeah, I
hardly
just
even
took a
know.
look at creative as a definition, and how it's defined is the first Google search result is that having or showing good imagination, original ideas.
Hmm.
And I kind of think like that's it. Like I don't know that it needs to be restricted to just like how you get to
How you're
that good
executing it.
imagination, original
Yeah.
idea. It really doesn't matter. I don't think it's
Yeah.
kind of it's just another tool. It's another way for us to express different things that we couldn't have before. I
Yeah.
don't think it's about the tool. It's more about the creative,
Yeah.
the process and getting there.
Yeah. That's very true. Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Um, we're almost out of time here, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to ask you one question, just about because you curated the entire creativity week and you curate the strategy week. I'm just curious, like, what is your process in terms of, how you decide on the speakers, how you decide on the topics and stuff like that? And maybe we'll leave it to that.
Mm. How's the sausage get made?
Yeah. Just because I'm curious, because, our mandate is to make,
Yeah.
Calgary a world-class marketing community. So I'm curious what made you think like
Yeah. I
maybe
mean,
this topic would be.
so some of it is just that I know, like, we have a pretty good pulse on what people are looking for. We've done a bunch of different surveys with members, and then with all the different events and forums and things that we host, um, I'm just kind of in it with all these people, and I often and I contribute in terms of some of their conversation, but a lot of times I'm just asking questions, and
Mm.
so kind of cross-referencing just all the conversations I've had with people, and then some of with the survey data that we were getting in, with some of the big fundamental things that haven't changed, like the constant survey results that come out showing that people have a challenge measuring ROI and justifying budget, and kind of breaking that down into meaningful parts, and then just trying to think about the community also and who's out there. Like there's a bunch of strategists, there's a bunch of creative people, there's a bunch of media people, um, and so like I'm just trying to take all of that into context and then pick a topic that I think would appeal to a lot of people,
Yeah.
um, and then find people that I think invite people that I think could be great at speaking on that particular topic because maybe I had talked to them in the past, or I just genuinely think that they'd be great at it. So sometimes it's about just giving people a chance to speak because they asked
Yeah.
for a chance to speak. So it's a little bit it's a little bit of like gumbo, I think, more than anything.
Yeah.
I wish I could say it's this specific recipe, but it's a lot more like making gumbo than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a great job of it. A lot of the content that we're publishing through our webinars and stuff are fantastic, and I think our members get a lot out of it, including
Mm,
myself. So, yeah, thanks for
yeah,
doing all that.
thanks. Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Awesome.
any last words before you head out to Cairns?
No, I'll be in Cannes next week. Well, I'm leaving tomorrow. So yeah,
Oh, are you? Okay.
yeah, tomorrow night it's gonna be a lot of fun.
All right.
So I'll be immersed in creativity, which is also part of the reason why I picked Creativity Week when I did, because it's happening right around the same time.
Good call. Great. Well, have a great time over there. Be careful. I know you rode bikes last time. Maybe
I am not riding a bike this time.
Okay, good. Thank God. All right.
My wife would kill
Just go
me.
eat some cheese or something. All right. Drink some wine. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah, find a boat and yacht to sit on.
There you go. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Awesome.
thanks,
Well,
Marc.
thanks again for hosting this, Derek. It's great. And I'm looking forward to doing more of these.